Hello and welcome to Live from the Eagle's Nest. We're here at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services National Conservation Studio, National Conservation Training Center, I should say. We're located just outside of Shepherdstown, West Virginia, along the banks of the Potomac River. So, hello and welcome from the National Conservation Training Center. I'm Randy Robinson. It's good to be with you today to talk about bald eagles. And we've got a nice shot of the Potomac River right here to give you a little orientation before we get going. The Potomac is just on over the hill from the bald eagle's nest. And this is a downstream view. It's shot with a drone going over one of the islands there. This is the habitat of the bald eagle that you don't see on the Eagle Cam. The Potomac's a beautiful river, and we're about 70 miles upstream from Washington, D.C. So just below this spot, those islands on the left-hand side, there's an very old, probably 1,000-year-old Native American fishing weir. And it's a rock formation that was used to basically trap fish, a fish trap in a sense. And that's how they got their sustenance living along the banks of the Potomac thousands of years ago. Now, the bald eagles find this just a great habitat for them. They love fishing here, and it's only less than a minute flight distance from their nest. We'll take a look at a close-up look at those nests today. Here we see the female bald eagle sitting on her eggs, and we've got 3 eggs in the nest right now. So we're going to be talking a lot about that today, and we thank you for being here. I want to give a big shout out to everybody that makes this possible. Our partners, the Outdoor Channel, that does the streaming for the Eagle Cam, friends of the National Conservation Training Center, Bald Eagles 101, and the Eaglet Monsters, and all of our Eagle Cam viewers who help us keep track of the nest action and post this action almost minute by minute online. And of course, our production team, Brett and Rob, right here at our studio at the National Conservation Training Center. Welcome to our old friends from 22 years of watching these nests and making observations, and all of our new friends too. Good to see you all and have you all with us today. So go ahead and send your questions in anytime via the YouTube chat. I will monitor them from here. And you can let us know where you're viewing from too, and we'll say hello. So today we'll look at some of the video highlights of the past few weeks, and we'll talk about some tips and tricks for online viewing of the eagle nests. So a little bit about the orientation. Right now, we're looking at the widescreen shot or the wide view of the nest from camera 2, and you can see how big that nest really is. It is about 8 feet across and 5 feet deep, probably weighs at least 1,000 pounds or more. It's been there for 22 years. In the distance, you can see some of the buildings from the NCTC, as we call it for short. And it's a habitat of field and forest, wooded areas. On the far, well, let's say the top of the screen as you're looking, that's actually on the Maryland side of the river. So Maryland is right across the Potomac River. We are on the West Virginia side. And if you watch the Eagle Cam very much, you might hear every now and then on the microphone some kids playing, and they're playing outside the daycare center. And these microphones are so sensitive that they'll pick up the kids when they're out there playing on nice days. Today, not so nice. It's a cold, windy day. Most of the snow is melted off. In fact, around here, all of it, but just south of here is getting a lot of snow today. So, we can say that bald eagles are really a true conservation success story. Populations are rising across the country and much of the country, and cleaner rivers and lakes are really vital to their habitat. That's one of the reasons that they're coming back in a big way. So we've seen these populations rising quite a lot. We'll take a look at a little bit of a wide shot here from our field cam. If you could bring that up, Rob, and give our folks a sense of what it looks like from a distance. So that's the big upper nest that we just saw. our cameras. We have 2 cameras looking down into that nest, and then we have a 3rd camera on that lower nest. Now, a little bit of background history here. That lower nest really came about in the last year. About 5 years ago, back in 2020, we decided we would put a little bit of a man-made platform in there, about fence post sized diameter black locust and mulberry branches. We put in, there's a big crotch in that tree. You can see that big strong crotch of the tree. This is a sycamore tree, by the way, well over 100 years old, big strong tree, but the branch holding that upper nest up has been dead for some years. Fortunately, it's a good strong branch, at least 18 inches in diameter. But about 5 years ago, we thought, well, what would happen if that branch broke or if that nest failed? We thought we'd give the bald eagles a little starter platform. So that's what we did. Just put a few branches in there, like I said, fence post size, about 5 years ago. And they've been perching on it now and then since then. But last spring, they started bringing some sticks in it and made a very starter nest. And now this is what it looks like. They really went to town this fall, very busy in November and December, bringing sticks in one after the other. And you can see now they've got a good sized nest. And we were unsure which nest that they were going to use up until they actually laid the eggs just a week ago or so. And so that's why we put another camera here. Now, we only do that camera work in the fall when the eagles aren't around. We would never go up there this time of the year when they're nesting. We don't want to do anything to disturb their habitat. They've got to stay on those eggs night and day almost, with brief periods of switching between the male and the female. They've got to incubate those eggs for 35 to 38 days before they're going to hatch. So we'd never want to disturb them this time of the year. So let's go back to that lower nest for 1 second, Rob. We'll point out a couple things here. I mentioned the limb. Now look at that limb in the center behind the nest. Okay, the limb on the left, the big strong limb, you can see that blue cable. That's going to the cameras on the upper nest. The upper nest is about 15 feet above this shot that you're seeing now. But that dead limb it's almost dead center of the shot that we're looking at, that's the limb that holds the entire upper nest up there. And you can see it looks different from the other sycamore big branch there. It doesn't have that nice gray, greenish bark on it. So it's been dead for a long time, but fortunately it's vertical. It's nearly vertical. And so the force is downward on that. That's a good thing. We had some very strong winds recently up in the 50 mile per hour range with gusts. And this limb has been holding up fine, knock on wood. But we do have a backup nest there. And so we'll go ahead and take a look at some highlights from the past couple of weeks here. Let's go ahead and play that first one. Here, this one is from February 20th, and thanks to Deb Steck and folks at Bald Eagles 101. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry, looking at the wrong screen. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, February 8th, before the eggs were laid, and we thought they might use this nest. So here they are in the lower nest. And now, people often ask, how do you tell the male from the female? The female that we're looking at, she doesn't have any black on her head. She's also bigger. So that's the female right there. Bella, as folks have named her. The male bird, which we'll get another view of him in a little bit. Here he comes with a stick. So this is the male, and the stick drops. It's kind of funny. That's one they've lost. You can see the black spots on the back of his head. Those are feathers. That's how we know this guy is a young bird. He's probably this year about 5 years old. Last year when he first came here, he's about 4. So Bella right now this year is probably about 12 years old. So that is the male on the left, the female on the right. You can see the female's a little bit bigger body-wise. Now he's in here with another stick. And this is their ritual. And they also bond doing this, and that's one of the reasons we think that they might be have built this lower nest as part of the bonding process to get this new guy, the male I'm talking about, in the nesting mode, and to have him invest in it, so to speak. So it's always fun watching them. And now you see the female testing out the nest cup there. She's got her chest down in there and digging in. They bring that dry grass in every chance they get to keep a good supply of dry grass in the nest. And you'll see them, if you watched it very much, fluffing up the nest. So here's a question from Raleigh that came into the chat. Raleigh says, I've seen times when it snowed and just about buried the setting eagle. I know they keep the eggs warm, but when that happens, how in the world can the birds keep themselves from freezing? Well, that's a great question, Raleigh. They have some amazing adaptations. Look at the bird in this nest. It's a cold night, February 12th. The first eggs were laid on the 10th, and then the second on the 13th, and the third on the 16th. So she's sitting on the first egg in this case. Nasty night, snowing, cold up there. Here the camera changes to the daylight mode, and here comes the male in. But they have down insulation under those feathers. The feathers are fairly water repellent. Now, you've seen birds up in Alaska. It gets much colder than in Alaska, but it was down in the teens here. Plus we had a nasty wind chill, so it's very cold. Any human, if you had your cold weather survival gear on, you wouldn't want to stay up in that nest for a day, let alone for over 30 days incubating eggs. So they are amazing creatures. Their body temperature is about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So with that layer of down insulation and then that protective layer of the feathers, they can stay reasonably warm. Now, when it rains or snows really hard, we'll often see the birds stretch their wings out. We call it a mumbrella if it's the female, to try to keep the eggs as dry and as warm as possible. Rain is actually, even though it's warmer temperature-wise, more of a stressor than snow is. Snow they can get up and shake off, and snow, if it's a dry snow, is actually an insulator and can help insulate things. But if it's a very wet snow or rain itself, that just soaks down into the nest, and that can be a problem for not just bald eagles, but ground nesting birds like wild turkeys and other birds and so on. So they are amazing creatures. Now, they have a brood patch, and the brood patch is an area where they've lost their feathers. It's on their chest or their breast. Both the male and female have a brood patch. And that is bare skin that they try to get right up against the eggs. And that area of their breast has extra blood vessels, so it's kind of like a heating pad. And that's what they want to get right against the eggs. And we'll see some videos of that in a little bit. If you want to go to the next video, Rob. And that brood patch is what allows them to keep the eggs warm, and along with the fact that they rotate it. Now here comes the male in, and he had some food in there. I don't know if you can get audio on here, Rob, but if you can, maybe we can turn up the audio. Here's a close-up. Thanks to Deb Steck again for these videos. But the male there, Scout, brought in a piece of food. We couldn't see what it was, but he came in a little bit low. The wind might have pushed him down, and he dropped it. And you know, the female was counting on that food, so both of them got up, and we could see the eggs there for a minute. This was February 14th, so the second egg is in there. The second one was laid on the 13th. A little hard to see in this shot, but they're making quite a squawk there in the effort to figure out what happened with their food. Now the male is going down. He's flying down below to see where that food might have dropped, whether it dropped. He actually went to the lower nest, and he thought it might have dropped in there. You can see him looking around. You know, he spent a lot of energy and work getting whatever kind of food that was. We don't know if it was a fish or it might have been a small mammal. Every now and then they'll bring in squirrels or a duck or even a goose from time to time. But when they're feeding the young ones, fish is definitely their primary food source, their favorite food source. It's high in protein and it's got a lot of moisture in it for the young ones. So hopefully when we see the young ones hatch out here in about 30 days or so, we'll see them bringing some nice fish into this nest because those little ones eat a lot of food and they go through a lot of fish. So we've got some more videos to show you, but I'm going to go ahead and look at some of the questions that we have now and say hello to Barbara Huck and Anna from Utah. Paul is over there in Maryland, not too far from here. Thanks, Paul. Paul is a regular contributor to our Nest Cam here in the comments and answers many questions from folks. Linda out there in Oklahoma. Melanie from snowy Missouri. Let's see, Barbara's from West Virginia on the Ohio River side. Okay, the western border. So Brittany is asking, will Scout keep the dark feathers on the back of his head or are they still his juvenile feathers? Eventually he's going to lose those, Brittany, but it's kind of handy right now that we can see a few dark feathers on the back of his head. But eventually, as he molts, he will lose them and his head will become completely white, as is Bella's right now. That's how we know he's a fairly young bird, between 4 and 5 years of age, now closer to 5 years of age, because the bald eagle's head and tail feathers change over time from all black to all white as they get older. Sheila, hello from Western North Carolina. JD from all the way out in Washington, and Annette from Atlanta, and Jenny from Washington State. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, today. And go ahead and put questions into the chat room whenever you can. I'll go ahead and answer a few that have already come in from Julia. She says, I see the eaglets bonk each other at nests and appear to be twisting and pulling on the other eaglet and not always during feeding times. Now, by the way, down south in Florida and other places, some of the young ones are already hatched out. But our eagles here in the mid-Atlantic latitudes aren't going to hatch until about mid-March. And likewise, up in Alaska, it's going to be even later. So the farther south you are, the sooner the eagles hatch, and the farther north you are, the later on in the season they hatch. But either way, when the young ones hatch, there is often aggression. We'd be surprised if we wouldn't see them bonking or pecking each other. And she asked, can this aggression cause the death of an eaglet? Is this a sign of dominance? Occasionally it can cause the death of an eaglet, Julia. Not that often, but as long as there's an adequate food supply. We've often seen the older one always has an advantage, and it's going to be the same case this year because these eggs the oldest one is 6 days older than the younger one, assuming they hatched the same length of time apart that they were laid. So let's just say 6 days. They grow so fast, that's a considerable advantage. You'll be able to see physically that the older one's going to be noticeably bigger. And if the young one tries to get a piece of food, that older one is going to peck on his head or her head and, convince the younger one, don't eat. I'm first. I'm top of the pecking order. So that's a natural tendency. They're aggressive animals. They have to be to survive. And they come that way right out of the egg. They are naturally aggressive birds. They have to protect their food. And even when they get bigger, every year we see the young ones. Let's say the adult male brings a fish in. The young one will grab it and hold on to it. He will not let either adult get it. He'll mantle over it, cover it up. They have to do that or another bird would steal their food, including their own parents. So they're aggressive from the start. But yeah, in extreme cases, a young one can even die from it. And it is a sign of dominance since it's the top of the pecking order. Whoever's hatched first is going to have an advantage, and that's the way it is every year. And let's see, that was Julia's question. Oh, and she had another part to this. Will NCTC be able to do anything if Scout attacks the eaglets? I'm sure this is on the minds of many after last year's tragic results. What's the possible rationale for such behavior? Well, in case you weren't here last year, the young male that we think was about 4 last year had been not exhibiting the behavior we'd seen in the males for 22 years of watching the nest. He wasn't very good about sitting on the nest. He would leave when the female left, follow her, not stay on the eggs. A lot of times the eggs were unprotected. They were laid late in the season, almost at the end of February, early March. We weren't sure they were even going to hatch last year. Then they finally did hatch, and the worst part of all that was that the male killed the eaglets shortly after they hatched, the first one, and then a few days later the second one. The question is, can we do anything about it? No. The short answer is no. We can't do anything about it. We couldn't do anything about it last year. We can't do anything about it this year. Because if we were to, like I mentioned earlier, first of all, we'd have to get the bucket truck out here, telescopic truck that goes up 90 feet in. We can't get to the nest in time enough to do anything. That's just the simple fact of the matter. Nor would we want to. This is nature. This is Mother Nature at work. This happens. Now, it might be more common than we think. We've got nests around the country. This, by the way, the NCTC camera here, the Fish and Wildlife Service, was one of the first in the country. But now there are maybe 50 bald eagle nests around the country that have cameras on them. So we get much more intimate views of the behavior that people, prior to having cameras on their nests, we never saw this before. So this kind of behavior with a young male might be more common than we think. We just didn't know, we didn't see, make these observations in the past. So the second part of Julie's question was, what's the possible rationale for this behavior? Well, first of all, let me say that kind of behavior is not uncommon in other mammals and other birds. Dogs, cats, bears, lions, even rabbits kill their offspring. Now, usually it's the male of a different male, let's say, that might, a bear or a mountain lion, might kill the offspring if he hasn't sired those offspring. In other words, they kill somebody else's offspring. But that's not always the case. Now, even rabbits, which generally are considered vegetarian, they will kill and eat their own young. Sometimes it's considered perhaps a nutritional deficiency. There's a lot of reasons, and we can never know for certain. But here's a few theories. One that I just mentioned, could have been another male's eggs last year. Not very likely. We saw this pair mating. Yeah, maybe another male got in. That's not likely. Another idea, population pressure or other stressors. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of eagles coming in this area. We have every year what we call floaters or young eagles. Around 5 years of age, it's kind of a dangerous time. They don't have a job, so to speak. They're young eagles out flying around, looking for territory when they get to be that age. They're looking for a mate. They're looking for a nest. This nest is in a kind of prime real estate location, right along the Potomac. Any eagle going up and down the Potomac sees this big nest 90 feet up in the air. So population pressure, we've seen it. We've seen fights at this nest and many other nests here in the Mid-Atlantic. It seems to be almost the norm now, these population pressures. So it's kind of a good thing, bad thing. Good, the populations are coming up. They were going downhill in the 60s fast, but the bald eagle was put on the endangered species list. The chemical pesticide DDT was banned, and some years after that, the populations started coming back up. There are other factors. There are reintroductions by many state and other federal agencies. The Fish and Wildlife and the state agencies, we would get young birds from Alaska, from Canada, bring them down and repopulate them. So that's built these populations back up, and that's all a good thing, but population pressure can be a stressor. So a third possibility, environmental contaminants. Not very likely, but it happens. There's no documented studies of bald eagles, but other birds, gulls in particular, there have been environmental contaminants, some type of a chemical or a poison, if you will, into their ecosystem, in the water, in the air, something from in their food source that caused some erratic or bizarre or unusual behavior. Now here's a fourth idea, and this is kind of what I personally think from witnessing this myself last year. Being a young male, he's never done this before, he was confused. He thinks that the young eaglets are prey. Remember, they're aggressive predatory birds. They eat baby ducks, they eat baby geese. We saw him, he was confused about incubating. He didn't stay on the eggs a lot. And he wouldn't bring food back for the female. So he's doing much better this year. That's the good news. I think the building of the nest, that lower nest, was kind of investing. Maybe that was the female's way of getting him invested. Even though they're not using that lower nest, he got into that mode of nest building. Does that cause a release of hormones? I don't know. But a lot of these behaviors are hormonal. The brood patch, the feathers dropping out, that's a release of hormones in both the male and the female. Some of these behaviors are instinctive. Nest building seems to be instinctive. Other behaviors, they may have to learn this from adult birds or other birds. Young ones hang out with other birds down at the river as they get older. So some of it is instinct, some of it is learned behavior, some of it is hormonal. We don't know all the answers, but those are four ideas there. To hope that answered your question, Julia. So here's some more from the chat room. How long can eggs be left alone without them freezing? Well, depends on the temperature there, but they would freeze pretty fast if it was, let's say, 10 degrees below zero. But if it's up around 40 degrees last year, like the eggs were not sat on for long periods, upwards of an hour last year. But if the temps are higher, 40s, 50s, they'll be okay. Below freezing, that's a whole different story. They could freeze pretty fast. Lisa asked, do they practice delayed incubation here? I haven't been watching the nest closely. No, we haven't seen that. Now, some birds, delayed incubation often happens when a nesting bird like ducks or geese or turkey, they'll lay a whole lot of eggs, maybe a dozen eggs. They want those eggs to hatch all at the same time because, young ducks follow the mother, or geese, same way. And it's easier for them to manage if they all hatch at the same time. Bald eagles aren't generally like that. They don't delay their incubation, generally speaking. And so the first one we're expecting to see hatch here in 30 or so days. And then a few days after that, the second, a few days after that, the third. So that's an advantage for the bald eagles, but no, we didn't see any delayed incubation here this year. Hello from San Diego to Rose out there. Hello from New Jersey and out there in Philly. Lisa's asking, did the female have a different mate before Scout? Yes, she did. We had a male here, by the folks called him Smitty, for 13 years. He was a great mate. A lot of people loved Smitty. He disappeared back in 2023. Again, like I said, competition between the young males and the older males. Same thing with the females. The last we saw of Smitty was September of 23. There were a number of young males came in, and then eventually Scout became the dominant male, and he's the new guy on the block. So Sheila says, Scout is truly engaged with Bella more so, I feel, from last year. He did seem confused last year. Yes, hydroglyal. He's doing much better this year. He's incubating the eggs on his own. He's bringing in food. He's turning the eggs. So I think he's doing a lot better in that respect this year. So Rob, let's go to our next batch of videos. While you're queuing those up, oh yeah, Raleigh was talking about the snow. Check this one out. So this was back on the 15th of February. So we have 2 eggs here, and that's Bella there. She's covered in, this was kind of a freezing sleet that morning. And here comes Scout. You see the black spots on the back of his head with some dry bedding material, and he's covering trying to cover up, like putting a quilt on her, so to speak. And so they bring that dry grass in as often as they can. They gather it up in the field. And now you're going to see Bella's been on there for quite a long time. This was about 11 o'clock in the morning. And she's going to get up here in a little bit. Often when they trade places, you'll see something interesting in that they kind of ball their talons up. Of course, their talons are very sharp, and they wouldn't want to puncture an egg or a young eaglet. So when they trade places, you often see that. Now here is the female getting up, and you'll get a peek at the eggs here. There were just, I believe, 2 at this point. The third one wasn't laid until the 16th. But you see, they're very careful about getting on and off the nest. Hello from Anne, all the way over in Manningtree, England. Great to have you with us there, Anne. So now you can see her turning the eggs with her beak. And you can see that second one that was laid is a little bit off color. The first one was pretty much white, and so was the third, but the second egg laid was a little bit off color. So we had a question from Deb. Notice one egg is tan in color, while the other 2 eggs are white in color. What could cause the color variation in bald eagle eggs? Is it diet or genetics? Well, they could be either one of those, Deb. Now you can see Bella get back on. She'll do that little wiggle right there. That gets her breast, her brood patch right up against the eggs, skin to egg contact. That's what she wants. Keep those eggs nice and warm, and they roll them about every hour. You'll see them do that often. So egg coloration can be a matter of stressful situations, or certain diseases can disrupt the normal egg-laying process, resulting in paler or unevenly colored eggs. We did see a little bit of blood streaking on the first egg that was laid, but it got cleaned off. Diet can play a role. A lack of essential nutrients like calcium can lead to abnormal eggshell formation and discoloration. And a third idea is nest material, wet nest material, especially something like pine straw, can stain eggshells. So could be any number of things. We shouldn't worry about it. We've seen other eagle eggs discolored. If you've ever had chickens or gotten chickens, free-range chickens, or chickens from your backyard, eggs from your backyard, you often see that they're a tan color, a brown color, even a greenish color sometimes. So those are free-range chickens are getting all kind of supplements. They're eating bugs, they're eating worms, and that can change the color of the eggshells too. But we won't know for another 30 days. If we see all 3 of these eggs hatch, they will know those eggs were fine. If one of them doesn't, then we'll know, there could have been something wrong with that egg. We just don't know till they hatch. Having said that, it's interesting. I look back in the records. We've had 8 different years where we've had 3 eggs laid. From 2006 to 2010, that was our original pair here, Liberty and Bell. 5 years in a row, they laid 3 eggs, but only 2 of those years did all 3 hatch and all 3 fledged. Other years, some of the eggs didn't hatch, and even the young ones died for various reasons that that we will never know. Now you can see that sort of off-white egg there in the front. Now again, in 14 and 15, we had 2 years in a row with 3 eggs. And now again this year. So this is the first year we've seen with the new guy, Scout, and Bella. First year that they've had 3 eggs. So right now, what I'd like to do is go to my computer here for a minute, if I can find my mouse, and I wanted to show a few tips and tricks to help you enjoy your eagle watching. So that's my computer that you're seeing on the screen right now. So I'm on the Eagle Cam, looking at the nest. Here's our 3 camera views down here. Camera 1 is a close-up on the nest. That's what we're seeing up above right now. That's the close-up number 1 camera. Number 2 camera is a wide angle, and number 3 camera, as we saw earlier, is looking at the lower nest. Now look and see where it says about Eagle Cam. There's some text here, and in particular, when you get a chance, go back when you're back to your computer. Look at links and resources. And there's some good resources. There's a lot of material in here. The link to the National Conservation Training Center will take you to our weekly updates of what's going on with the nest. And especially if you're a teacher, an educator, a homeschooler, we've got a whole lot of educational resources on there for teachers and homeschoolers to use. The next link is the Friends of NCTC, our group that sponsors our Eagle Cam here, and they've got a great website. You can check them out when you have a chance. Nest location is a map that shows where we're located here in relation to Baltimore and DC and other cities in Maryland, West Virginia. Then the nest history and FAQ. Now Deb Steck has put a lot of work into that. I'm going to click on this nest history and FAQ to point out a couple of things. Deb's got a lot of time and energy devoted here. We appreciate her doing that. She's got links to the 3 YouTube links. Now, some of you in the past, we know from the chat room, have had trouble with getting the video links to open. Now, that issue came about this year, and it's related to Google and YouTube. It's nothing that the Outdoor Channel can do anything about, nor can we do anything about it. And it's Google's way of checking to make sure you're not spamming or you're not a bot. That's why they ask you to sign in. Now, there's 2 things you can do to help that. You can clear the cookies and you can clear the cache on your computer. And by the way, I'll say that iPads or any kind of a pad or a tablet or a phone can be a little tricky to watch the nest from. If you have a laptop or a desktop computer, that's generally easier. So if you go and clear your cookies, clear your cache, everybody's got a different browser. It might be Safari if you're on a Mac, it might be Chrome, it might be Explorer or Edge, whatever it is. If you just Google the term how to clear cookies in cache in Chrome, for example, you'll find out how to do that. They're all a little bit different. Clear your cookies, clear your cache, and that might solve the problem for you. But if it doesn't, go to the link that I just showed you, Nest History and FAQs, and you'll find these 3 direct links to YouTube, and those can come up for you. Now, we only have the chat room on the Outdoor Channel, so you can come back there and chat any time, but that's what I wanted to point out to you there. Also, Deb has got, an extensive nest history here. She's got Facebook links. She's got links to her her video, Paul's Library, Terry's and Trudy's video library on Bald Eagles 101. So it's a wealth of information there, lots of great photos, and you can see them on down through there when you get a chance to look at those. So I'm going to back up and go back to, again, back at the Outdoor Channel site here. A couple of things that might come in handy for you. You probably all know you can expand the screen and make it large. If you click on this gear wheel here, that will give you the option for playback speeds. If you want to see something in slow motion or speed it up, you can change the playback speed. Likewise, if you look at that red bar, you see I've scrolled my mouse over the bottom of the screen. I can drag that red bar back. I'm just going to do it randomly, back about 4 hours here. And now we're back into the morning hours here. So you can back up as much as 12 hours, rewind as much as 12 hours, or DVR, either whatever you want to call it. Then if you hit live here at the bottom, below the red line, we're going to go back to the live view. So that's pretty handy. If you, for example, go into the chat room and see that an egg was laid at a certain time, you can go back and look at that. Now, a couple other things that that Paul Kolnick has put in. Oh, one other thing, keep the volume up. When I'm doing other work on my computer and I want to sort of listen in the background, I keep the volume up. And then if something happens at the nest, I'll hear it on the microphone. If one of the other birds come in, I can hear it, and then I can go to see what is going on. So that's kind of a helpful trick. Keep the volume up. Think about rewinding. You got the 12-hour rewind option. You got the control wheel at the bottom that allows you to change speed and quality. And I mentioned already about the clearing your cache and cookies and using the direct links on YouTube. So here's some very useful keyboard shortcuts from Paul Kolnick. So on your keyboard, if you're on a laptop or a desktop, you can hit the K key. That will pause it, and that'll resume play. So when you're paused, so you hit the K key, now you're paused. If you hit the period key, you go 1 frame of video forward. If you hit the comma key, you go 1 frame of video backward. Likewise, when you're in the play mode, if you hit the right arrow key, you go 5 seconds forward. So if you're searching for something, 5 seconds forward is the right arrow, 5 seconds backward is the left arrow. And then you can go 10 seconds forward by hitting the letter L key, or 10 seconds backward by hitting the J key. So those are pretty handy, and maybe Deb could post those later on onto those FAQs. We put them in the chat room, but they often get covered up and lost. So we'll try to see if we can get those into the FAQs here before too long. So let me go back. Rob, if you want to, I think we've got 1 or 2 more videos to share. We're getting up on 1:45 here. So let's see what we've got. Melanie, yep, excellent resources. Thanks to Deb for that. Ann says, I first saw them in the nest in 2007. Been watching on and off since then. That's great, Ann. Glad to hear that our friends over in England are enjoying the eagles too. Melanie says, I love that info about the gear icon. I didn't know that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can go forward. You can speed up the action. You can do it in super slow motion, and that's very handy. So, if there's any other questions, go ahead and put those in. And Rob, do we have 1 more video to play from 2020? Yeah, I think, let's see. Yeah, we've got one from the 18th. This one's kind of funny. Scout, we had something brought in there that I missed whatever came in. It looks like some...
it was a bird type
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did see some. Yeah, Rob mentioned that it was a bird that came in. Um, could have been a goose or a duck. I did see some feathers there, but I wasn't paying attention. I'll have to go back and look at that a little bit closer. So it's good that they have some food in the nest there. That's a good sign that that's another way they stay warm. Of course, they're warm-blooded critters, so they need lots of food. But back on the 18th, we had a video. Bella wasn't quite ready to trade places, so Scout started moving some sticks around. It was kind of funny. But we'll just let that video play, and I will just go out on that. Let's see, one more from Jim in Ohio. Thanks for the narration. This makes me want to go to a national park again. Here the osprey leave for the winter. Do these eagles these eagles stay year round to keep their claim? Yes, they do, Jim. These guys do. Some eagles do migrate, especially eagles up in the cold north in Quebec. I know golden eagles come down this way, some bald eagles, but these eagles here pretty much stay here year round. They're not always on the nest. They only use the nest during the nesting season, generally from now till mid-June, and then they're down along the river. But it stays, reasonably mild in the mid-Atlantic, so this pair do stay around. And Sheila said, yes, Scout brought in a bird for lunch. Lisa asked, any concern about bird flu here? It is a concern, Lisa. We know that a couple of young eaglets down in southwest Florida died from avian influenza. They did an autopsy, and they was avian influenza. Now, waterfowl in particular are susceptible, as you've heard on the news sources, as are chicken, domestic flocks, chickens and other domestic birds. But waterfowl in particular, geese and ducks, they have avian influenza. It's kind of intrinsic. Some of them don't show any signs or symptoms, but bald eagles and other birds like osprey feed on waterfowl, and so they could pick up avian influenza from a duck or a goose. We just had a goose come in. We have a Blue Ridge Wildlife Center in Virginia, just south of here. They had a goose brought in from Fredericksburg, Virginia, that had to be euthanized. It was in bad shape. It had avian influenza. So it is a concern. Hopefully we won't see it. We'll be on the lookout for any changes in behavior, but hopefully it stays well away from here and in this part of the Potomac. So folks, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks again for joining us today. We're going to come back again. We're going to let those eggs incubate for the next few weeks. We'll come back again on Thursday, March 17th at 1 o'clock for our next Live from the Eagle's Nest broadcast. We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us and have a great afternoon.